In my attempt to build a lot of prototype kind of apps this year, I'm going to start building a boards app. So something kind of like a Trello clone, though there's so many different types of these out there now. It's basically built into everything. It's built into stuff like, I think Monday.com has one, ClickUp has one, stuff like that. And I found that I've actually used this concept a few times in projects that I've been building with various companies that I've worked with. They've often needed sort of a custom boards concept to help them with their process. So I thought it'd be really cool to sort of have this as one of the projects that I build, and it introduces some really interesting challenges for VueModel that we might run into that we can sort of try and overcome. And it also gives us the chance to work with media files as well, because I know that's something that I want to add to my prototyping process. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. PNPM create Quasar. Huh, that's a great start. Oh, NPX create Quasar. I think you can also do PNPX or something like that. So how about we call this boards app or something like that. I think boards is already taken up on my computer, so you could just call it boards. Not the most inspiring name. Quasar version 2. We're going to be using TypeScript, and we'll use v8.5. I thought this was out of beta. Next major version. Oh, that's fine. I've been using it for quite a while and haven't run into any problems, so it's fine. Boards app is fine. Boards app. A drag and drop boards/cards app. That'll do. Composition API with script setup. Yes. Linting. I actually really want to try using Prettier because I've been pretty allergic to Prettier because I've had some serious problems with it in the past. But a lot of the guys in the Quasar team are telling me that they've been using it and it's been awesome. So I don't think I'll use it in this video because I'm not used to it and I predict some things might go wrong. But we might try it in a later one. And we're going to add Pina. So yeah, I'm just going to go to standard. And no, I will handle that myself. Maybe I should have done PNPX. Oh, bugger, that means we'll have to run the whole process. PNPX. I'm just worried that it's not going to install correctly if I don't use PNPX. Huh. All right, let's just see what happens. Boards, app. Open that in code. A little bit of a rough start, but nothing that we can't get over. And we should be able to just say p install. P for me is PNPM, so it's kind of my alias since I use it all the time. All right, we'll give that a second to run. And I think the next step is probably to install authentication. So we'll get that going next. No, we'll go with Quasar. Have I got that globally installed? Yes, I do. So let's say Quasar. I might as well run this while I'm here. Oh no, because that's not for installing the global version. Oh, this is fine. Quasar extension add and at vueauth/auth. And that should give us authentication with our Quasar app. And then I'll open that up in our browser. So we're going to use IndexedDB for authentication. In other words, the user's computer, because we're doing prototyping here. But of course, all these other options you saw are available to you as well. Huh, something has failed. Okay, so there's something wrong with the naming of it. Oh, I thought that I fixed this. It's all right, I can fix it manually for now. And hopefully by the time you watching this run into this problem, it should be fixed properly. So where is VueAuth? I think it doesn't like that I'm using a star sign there. Yeah, I really need to change the way that I do alpha releases. I think this might have been fixed in VueModel, but not VueAuth. Let's just check the latest versions. There we go. Let's make that one 8. And then we'll run p install. And see how that goes. Okay, I think that's done. Now, there's a few things we need to do to get that going. Let me just check that it's scaffolded out all of the files. Yeah, so we got auth routes here. So it generates a whole bunch of authentication routes for us. So I'll jump into my routes file and we'll add those in. Auth routes. Okay, so it's using the auth routes. Another thing we have to do is authenticate our routes on the app page. So basically, really early on early on in our app, we're trying to we're going to handle redirects and stuff like that. And I think this is called authenticate routes or something like that. Let's try this. Import from @vueauth/auth. Oh no, this will be the Quasar app extension version. So Quasar app extension. Let's just restart Vue and TypeScript server. It's coming out of VueAuth, and it should be Quasar. No, I'm not seeing it. Quasar app extension auth is what it's called. Let's grab this. And hopefully autocomplete is working. Huh. Okay, let's try it again. No. Okay, let's try reloading the window. Sometimes this works. Then the next thing to do would be to check that that's actually installed. Yeah, okay, that's working now. It's kind of frustrating. All right, there we go. So basically what this does is it means that everything inside of our route that has got this meta tag on it, this unauth only, or in some cases auth only, it basically handles the redirects for all of that. So if you try to go to the dashboard and you're not authenticated, because that's auth only, then it redirects you to the login page and handles all that kind of good stuff for you and adds a spinner as well. So that's kind of cool. Let's see if that's working. Run our dev server. Okay. I think I've seen this before. Looks like that's something related to our TypeScript config. All right, well, let's see what's going on there. If we jump into Quasar app.vite, then inside of here, that takes us to index dot. Okay, interesting. Let's see if there's a new version of Quasar app.vite. I don't know what that's all about. App.vite. All right, so the latest version is out of beta. All right, so something weird must have gone on with the installer. Let's give that a try. We'll run install, and then we'll run the dev server. Huh. Interesting. There's a whole bunch of linting related stuff here, but the error that I'm getting is, yeah, telling me that it can't find that sort of root ts config file. And see, this is weird because I'm pretty sure with the new Quasar, it generates a config file for you. Yeah, there it is there. So it's almost like the scaffold that I have installed was not correct. All right. Getting a vague feeling that I'm doing this fundamentally wrong, which is embarrassing considering that I've been doing it for the past like 7 years or so. Okay, so Quasar with the CLI. Gosh, I haven't even gone to the docs for this in a while. Installation, Quasar CLI. Yeah, okay, let's run both of these. Well, I'm not going to do the first one because I don't think I need the CLI installed globally. Okay, we're going to start from scratch. And I might do that by doing an rmrf on boards app. Okay, so let's call this boards app TypeScript Vite boards app. And we use composition API with script setup, Sass with SCSS. Yes, we will enable Pina. We're not going to use Prettier. Yeah, the way this is showing is different. So I think it's the way that I use the CLI install tool. And we'll use PNPM. All right, this is feeling right this time. That's right. We're not meant to use npx. It's PNPM space create. I don't know why I did that. It's bizarre. Something glitched in my brain. So let's open that up and see how we go. Okay. Now we add VueAuth. So Quasar extension add at VueAuth/auth. That'll install VueAuth. And then that should give us that route file, index.db. And we'll probably run into the same error. Yeah. Bugger. Silly Luke. And from memory, that was an 8. And if I hover that, there we go. That should be a 2. Okay. So now we'll jump into our routes file. First I want to jump into my TS config and ensure this is right. Yeah, that looks right now. Okay, and in our routes file, we can add those auth routes. So this is basically just installing VueAuth now. We jump into app.vue. I like my script tag at the top. And let's see if we get autocomplete here. I think it was authenticate routes. All right, maybe we don't. So we will import from at VueAuth/Quasar app extension auth. Help if I spelled that correctly. And there it is, authenticate routes. Okay, we're back to where we started now. So now that we've got those routes authenticated, the last thing I think is the boot file, which sets up VueAuth. So if we jump into our Quasar config, then we'll come in here and we'll add VueAuth. And I think that's everything we need to do to install it. pdev. I used to have it a little bit more hands-off, but recently I've changed it so that it's a little bit more sort of in the hands of the person that's using VueAuth. Okay, looks like I'm already logged in just from when I've installed something in the past. So let's go to storage and clear site data. Now we refresh the page, we're not logged in. We'll register an account. Luke Diebold, Luke at ldbold.com. Password. register, and there we go. So that's all working, and now I can log out. I got forgot password, and this works in kind of an interesting way because we don't actually have a real backend. The backend is the user's computer. So I'll quickly show this because it's kind of cool. The way that this that Vue Auth works with IndexedDB is that it basically just creates a database for your users. And you'll notice that I got a user here with this ID, and it shows the password as well. This is not for production. This is basically just for testing. So it checks that those passwords match. And that's how you kind of log in. And again, this is prototyping, but that's why you can see those passwords in plain text. Of course, you would never do this in a production app. You would swap out Vue Auth, the IndexedDB provider, with a different one. So if I said luke@ldbold.com there, it should find one. And what it does is it actually saves, I believe, to local storage. It saves the password reset token. So you can create like a fake email that uses that variable from local storage to demo what it would be like to then reset the password. So if you really wanted to show that to a customer that you're prototyping for, you could do that. So that's kind of cool. Well, let's go back and we will log in. luke@ldbold.com, password. And now we're logged into the app. The next thing we want to install is VueModel so that we can basically save data to the user's computer as well. So similar to Vue Auth, but this is for saving data, dealing with related data. It's actually pretty advanced. It does a lot of stuff with creating, updating, deleting, bulk updating, live updating, stuff like that. And the idea is you'll be able to swap out the backend. Currently, it only supports the user's computer and Laravel Orion, but I intend to add other ones like Supabase and Firebase and Strapi and other APIs like that. Okay, so let's see if we can get that installed. Quasar extension add at VueModel/VueModel. So we'll give that a second to install what it needs to install. And it's going to give us the two options here. And we're going to choose IndexedDB, in other words, the user's computer. Give that a second to run. Yeah, and it looks like I did fix that incompatible version bug that was in Vue Auth. And now this means that we get this boot file for VueModel. So that's how it gets installed. And this is kind of all the cool stuff you can do with it. Won't bother showing that for now. And we'll jump into our Quasar config file and we'll add in VueModel. And I think that's all you need to do to install VueModel. Yeah, you basically just need the boot file. And now we're ready to start creating models. And the one that we get by default is the user. And now see this little red squiggly we get here? That's because we need experimental decorators enabled. So if I jump into my config, my TS config, and we jump into our build options. No, it's compiler options, I believe. Compiler options. Experimental decorators. Set that to true. And now that's working fine for us. By the way, whenever you see a little snorkel guy here, that's basically saying this is where you dive in. So that's where you can, that's probably where you want to look if you want to start coding. And we also get a command here so that we can create our own models. And we're ready to get started now. So the first thing we'll probably want to create is a concept of project. So I kind of want to start from the top down. And you're going to be able to create projects. And then you'll be able to create boards for those projects. And then, of course, cards for those boards. So let's say Quasar at VueModel/VueModel, and I believe it is new model, something like that. Make model. There we go. Make model, and then the name of the model. So we'll call this project. Okay, so here's our new model here, project. And now this is just like creating something in the database. But the cool thing about this is you don't have to migrate a database or anything like that. If you want to make any changes to how things look in your database, you essentially just update the values here And then, if you need to, you then just clear all the storage in your browser. So it's really, really great for prototyping because adding a field here is literally like adding a field to a database. And you get all the typing and that good stuff too. So we can see that it's telling us to dive in here. And how about for the project, we have a title. And you'll notice that it gets an owner ID by default. So if I jump in here and go into VueModel, it actually does some fancy stuff to make sure that the owner ID is automatically set for us. So it automatically filters the data to the owner of that data. So when you log in, it's automatically going to only give you data that has got an owner ID. And whenever you create a resource, it's automatically going to set the owner ID. So essentially the concept of user-owned data is baked in from the beginning. So you don't have to worry about that when you're prototyping. It kind of just works for you behind the scenes. But then of course, there's lots of little things that you can do to opt out of that functionality if you need global data. Okay. So we've got all that set up. We've got a title for our project. Now we can sort of go ahead and start coding. And if I can just get my bearings here, if I jump into pages, we get this dashboard page. That's the page that we get by default, and we can see it's telling us to dive in there. And it's complaining about a couple of these files. I kind of wish that it would ignore that file. Oh, that's the other thing I want to show you guys quickly. This really annoys me. I wish it was closed by default so I could just open it and look at it when I care. And there's a way that you can do that. Let's see if I can remember, because it's not as obvious as I thought it would be. Yeah, this is it here, the Vite plugin checker. And it's got something to do with, what do you call it? It's not called a pop-up. They give it a different name. Overlay, that's right. Overlay, initial is visible or something like that. No, I don't think that's it. We'll just try it anyway. Refresh the page. Huh, now it's not showing at all. Nope, there we go. All right, I'm gonna have to Google this quickly. Whoops. Where's the part about the overlay? We'll go to the documentation. It's probably, initial is open. Okay. Initial is open, false. Refresh the page, give that a second. Wow, it's taking a real long time. Yeah, there we go. And then it shows up, but it's not open. Cool, I find that a lot more useful and not as kind of in your face. So let's create the projects page. I'm going to create a new route for this. So we'll go into our, we'll jump into our auth routes, I think, because this is for someone that is authenticated. I don't know, I feel weird though about calling this an auth route. How about we take this particular route here out of auth routes, the one that takes you to the dashboard page, and we just put that into our normal routes. Yeah, and then anything in the dashboard can just sit inside of there. So how about I copy, or maybe the default page on the dashboard is the projects page. So we could make this a redirect. How about this? Let's go projects, and we'll give that a name of projects, but then we'll create another one here which acts as a redirect. Yeah, and that redirects you to the projects page, and it's got a name equal to dashboard. Okay, what's wrong with that? Path is missing. Okay, that's where it redirects to, but then the path is equal to an empty string. Okay, cool. So now, yeah, that redirects me to the projects page. And that should show the dashboard layout. Is that where it's redirecting me? Redirect projects. Or maybe that takes in like an object with the name of the route. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so now if we go to slash, nope, still not taking me there. Oh no, that's if you, oh, slash dashboard is the is the root there. So let's get rid of this index page route. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and now we go to nothing. It takes us to the dashboard. Cool. Okay, so next we can work on this projects page. And let's create a new page for that. New folder, projects, and a new file in there called projects page. And then hopefully soon we'll actually get to start using VueModel. I've tried to make this fast, but there's been a lot that we've set up already, so I need to start thinking about things I can do to streamline a lot of this. But I don't know, maybe that's just the nature of projects. Sometimes they take a lot of time to set up. Okay, so I have a page in here, ... Let's just see if that's working. We kind of need to switch into, whoops, developing mode now. We got two open. What am I doing? And that route is for projects. And now that should take us to projects/projects page. Projects page. Okay. Oh, service shut down. Sometimes it doesn't like it when you add pages. I wonder if that's it. Yeah. Okay. And then there's our dots. So we want to show all of our projects, and to do that we can say const, and I'm currently calling this project model. I don't know exactly what to call it. And then we use model, and I started this API before Vue released VueModel, so now we've got a bit of a clash here, so I might end up having to rename it, and that needs to be imported from VueModel core. And now that's going to use the project class, so we just pass that class directly through, and then we get all of the nice typings out of that class. Okay, so we might start with a create button. So let's add a q-page-sticky, because I want this to stick in the bottom right side of the page. And we'll have a button. And if we do FAB, that makes it a floating action button. And we'll give it an icon equal to MDI plus. Okay, usually the first time you import these icons, you need to do it manually. And then they all import after that. It's just because it's such a large library, I think it kind of ignores it by default. At Quasar extras is where that comes out of. And then you can do, I think it's what? MDI version 7. Yeah, there we go. MDI plus. And then the rest of them should import more easily from now on. I'm going to jump into my lint file. And I'm going to make my linter a little bit more strict. Oh no, it's already pretty strict. It's on flat recommended. Essential, strongly recommended, recommended. So let's try restarting the linting server. Huh, I'm not getting the auto completion there. Bugger, because this is going to be really annoying to build without it. Oh no, it wasn't. It was not essential. Oh, come on, Luke. Get it together. There we go. And there's our floating button. Now we'll come down here and we'll say the offset is maybe 22, 22. It's just so it kind of like pushes out a little bit. Oh, I've put that in the wrong spot. That should be on the page sticky. That's where we put the offset. Now we'll give this a color of primary. And now when we click click on this, it will open up a dialog for creating a project. And there's a few ways to do this. I like to do it with a template, and I'm going to create a new file for this. So new file, create project dialog.vue, and we'll need a form as well. So I'm going to separate those two by having a project form.vue. So we'll create a template for the create project dialog, and that's going to have a q-dialog in it. And since I predict this page is going to get a little bit complicated, I'm already going to create a place to store my composables. And let me show you how I've started doing this for pages. This is kind of my current way of doing it that I think is the nicest. I create a use projects page.ts and export const use projects page, and then I go define store there and call this whatever projects page. I never really use the dev tools anyway, but that's there just in case you want to find it easily in the dev tools. And then we'll do a return here, and that's going to return everything we need on that page. So then I'll say here const projects model is equal to use. I think we already used it on the page, didn't we? Yeah, so I'm actually going to take it from there and put it here instead. Use model, again, that has to come from VueModel core, and then project. And we're going to return that composable here like so. Okay, so now if we jump into the dialog, we might actually just make it first. So, or use it on the page. What have I done? We called this the project dialog or the create project dialog. And we'll say const p. I just use p because it's short and I remember it on every page. P just stands for page. So all the state related to this page. Use projects page. And now we can come in here. And what I like to do is VueModel p dot, and now in project model, so this is kind of the cool part. We're going to pull project model out of here. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place. I can feel it in this live stream, but hey, I'm kind of figuring stuff out. Project model, and we could even go one step further here. We could just say pull out of project model, and then the composable for working with the project. No, I'm not going to go that far in this case. You start to lose clarity when you work that way. So project model dot creator. So this is the composable that we use for creating projects. Show form. So basically we get a ref there for free for showing the form. So we jump into that dialog, create project dialog. We can now start working with the form. So I might just add a toolbar first. Well, we might not even need one, to be honest. Yeah, no, I'm not going to bother. We'll call this create project. Oh, what is it? Project form. There it is. Okay. And then when you click on this button, project model creator, blah, 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 form is equal to true. And then that dialog should show up. Whoop. What is going on? It's just autocomplete. Yeah. Okay, let's see how this goes. So project form has got nothing in it, and that is making it unhappy. Let's try that. Nice, that dialog showing up, but there is nothing there currently. Okay, so now we can start working with the form. So let's have a Q input here, and then we're going to VueModel, and we want the page. So let's say const p is equal to use projects page. And I might also pluck out the form. Or actually, this form is going to work for creating and updating, so I want it to be a little bit more agnostic. So what I'm going to do is have the form passed in. And we can do that by saying const form is equal to define model, and we'll pass into here model value. And if you wanted, you could call this model value for a bit of extra clarity. I do tend to do that, so that's what I'll do here. We'll make it required because this form doesn't really make sense unless you model it with something. And now we can actually add typing here as well. So if I say form here and pull that out of VueModel, all we have to do is pass in the project, and now this is going to be nicely typed for us. Model value dot title. And that's all we need here. So we'll say filled, and that's it. I might actually add a bit of padding as well, or I might do that on the dialog. Yeah, so then at this level on the create dialog, we can then say, again, const p is equal to use projects page. And then here we vmodel p dot project model dot creator dot form. And so again, the reason we're doing it this way is because then if we want to use the form for updating, we use the updaters form instead. All right, so let's refresh the page, click on create, that shows up. I'm going to wrap this in a queue card and a queue card section. Let's try that. There we go. And then let's give this a label. And I'm thinking project title. Yeah. And then how about underneath the card itself, we have a button. And the way I like to do this, you can do it however you like. I like a full width button. And we'll set the color equal to primary there. Oh, sorry, within the card, but not the card section. Yes, lint is not happy, so let's restart it. Save this. There we go. And then we can give that a label equal to create. And we know it's loading because we can now use the project model creator composable for that. Dot creating. That's kind of all done for us behind the scenes. So now we can give it a title, and then when we click on create, we want this form to be submit. So we want to say @submit here. Now this is something that I've sort of tweaked recently to create better usability in my apps. So submit dot, I believe it's stop, and then we can say p.projectModel.creator.create. So just go ahead and do the create. Now on the button, rather than having a click event on the button, I like to use the form's native submit, okay? And in order for that to work, we have to give this a type equal to submit, and we also have to tell it its form. I believe it's just form actually. And then we can say the ID of this is project-form, or we'll make it more specific, create project form. And I believe that's how you can then match this button up to that form without the button being inside the form component. Okay, so this is basically QForm is just a form component. Let's get rid of that. It's not being used. But since the button is outside of that component, we need a way to essentially match that button up to the form. And I believe this is how you do it. We'll find out in a second. Some project, enter, and it worked. So you can say here form and then give it the ID of the form that you want it to match up to. So that's a pretty cool trick. Not really a trick, it's how it's intended to be used. Save that. So now we want to be able to see all of our projects, and we want to be able to click on them as well. So let's come up here, and we might just try and show them all in a pre-tag to begin with. It's a really good place to start. And we have some imports we don't need anymore. And I'll say here p dot project model. And what have we got here? So I'm going to jump into the updater, One thing I'm thinking about changing is putting the indexer directly on here. Indexer, fetcher, find, multiple resource finder, whatever you want to call it. But we actually keep it on the updater. And the reason it's on the updater is because there's a very sort of close link between updating and finding resources. So if you want to be able to bulk update resources, so for example, change multiple resources and then have them all update at the same time, then you need to be able to find those resources and then make forms with them. And that's, since those processes are kind of very intricately linked, that's why all of the resources actually sit within the updater itself. I know that can seem a little bit confusing. It might make a little bit more sense in a second. So if I say forms here, then you can see that we've got one project. So we've got an array, and inside of here we can see the ID, the record itself, so that's what it looks like in the store. We have a form that we can model so that we can very easily update it. And then lots of interesting information like, has this form changed? Has it failed to update recently? Stuff like that. And then we can get micro information. So you can even find out, for example, has the title changed in this form? Is the title currently updating? So if you change the title and start updating, then this will show as true, but owner ID updating would show as false. So you get really, really nice, intricate information about what's happening with those values. This is something I always wanted, and so I put all the effort into building it so that I didn't have to do it again. Okay, so that looks like it's working. And now it's really, really easy to iterate over. We can come in here and say Q card. We might wrap everything in a div because that usually makes it a little bit easier to display. And we'll make this, how about we make that a row and then we have another div for the card. And we'll have a column. No, I won't even bother giving it a column right now. We'll just let it sort of show however it decides to show, and then we'll tweak it from there. So we'll cut that value. And we can say v-4. And I'm going to crack open an object here. And then use in. So now we can pull all the stuff out that we need. So we're going to pull the form out. And let's also pull out the ID so that we can set the key. Key is equal to ID. And that's probably all we need for now. Let's just see if we can display it in the card. Form dot, and we'll say title. All right, it's not very pretty, but there it is. Let's put this in a Q card section. There we go. Let's add some padding to the page. Nice. And yeah, I think that looks good enough for now. Showing it in a card is fine. I just want something simple that shows the functionality, and then people can take these concepts and then use them later on to sort of turn it into whatever they want to turn it into. And how about we say another project, create, that works. We can say Q col gutter medium to add a little bit of a gutter there, maybe even large. And if we want all of these to be the same width, that's where we could then start doing stuff like, I don't know, col, maybe if it's small, it's 6. But once it's medium and above, then it goes to 4. Yeah, something like that. And then if it's large and above, it goes to 3. Yeah, all right, that's fine. Don't need to do anything schmancy for now. And when you click on this card, it's then going to take you to, actually what we might do is we might open the left menu and then select that project. So what if we showed, oh no, because here we'd probably want to show all the boards for the project, wouldn't we? Yeah. Just wondering how we do this. Yeah, let's make it so that when you click on one of these, that becomes the chosen project. And then this menu shows all of the boards for those for that project. Okay, so we'll want to open the dashboard layout then. Yeah, we call this here the auth layout, so the layout for when you're authenticated. And let's just jump into there and have a look around. So we got our auth state here. That's probably why you can see my name up there. And down here, we want to have a way to then add boards based on the project that's currently selected. But then it's not really the purpose of a menu like this, though, is it? I don't know. It is sometimes. Like in Google Keep, they do this, where all of your notes show up in your left menu. Oh. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get this board select working, and then we'll create a route for it as well and sort of get all that looking good. So we'll say routes here, and we'll have a new route for the boards in that project. So we'll say project singular slash, and then we'll just use IDs for now, but of course you could use slugs if you wanted to. And then we'll say props is equal to true, so that board ID gets sent down to the page. And then we could call this the, I guess, the boards page. Boards page, boards, and then we'll create a new folder called boards inside of pages, and then a file called boardspage.vue. Template, queue page, and I'll probably want some padding there as well. Put a little comment in there. Okay, so project, and then the board ID as a param, and then what we might do is hook that up next. So how about this? We jump into, projects page, and then when you click on this card, so we can say class is equal to cursor pointer. I think that's what it's called. Let's see if that works. Maybe pointer cursor? Cursor, is it? Goodness, can't spell. Cursor. Oh, man. I don't know how to spell this. Okay, Quasar docs. I know we've got a helper class for this. Cursor. Yeah, cursor pointer. All right, maybe I've just spelled it wrong at some point. Refresh the page, maybe? All right. Looks like our server got nuked at some point. Let's try again. All right, there we go. Now we get the pointer. And then we're going to need the router at this point. So let's come in here and say const router is equal to use router. Not route, just the router. And then we'll do a router push. Oh, it's probably better to wrap this in a router link now that I think about it. Yeah, let's do it that way. Can I do that? I think I can just say like router link like this. And then I might not even need the cursor pointer. And then for 2, we set that equal to the name of this route. Did we get that router name? We might not have. Projects page. Okay, this is boards. So it should be, yeah, boards. And name equal to bar boards. But then we also want a param on there. So params, which is the project ID. Project ID, which will be the ID of the current project that we're on. Huh, now none of them are showing up. All right, so we got something funky in our code. Router link, is that not what it is? Missing required param board ID. Oh, I got a board ID, but it should be project ID. Huh. And then I guess you would then say slash boards. Yeah, that route makes a bit more sense. Okay, the styling's a little bit crap and I would probably rather get rid of that, but maybe not now. Cool, all right, it's working. So now once you've selected a project, that puts you on the project page. No, it doesn't. It puts you on the boards page. And now we can go ahead and start working on this. Restart the linter because it seems to be messing up again. And now we're going to do something similar here where we create a composable. So let's say use boards page. That'll do. I think I've got a little thing here for that. Oh no, because that doesn't use Pina. So we'll say export const use boards page is equal to define store boards page, and then we'll do a return here. Okay. Next we can say const boards model or board model, boards model, board, that'll do, is equal to use model, which is coming from VueModel. And now we pass in there board. Okay, we don't have the concept of a board yet, so now we go ahead and add that. Similar as to before, Quasar at VueModel / VueModel, make model board. Okay, so let's get that imported, control click it. Now a board is going to have a title. I think I'll give it a color as well. And I think that's it. A title and a color. Oh, and a project ID, of course. Project ID. Where are these guys? And then we can create a relationship here, and it belongs to a project via a project ID. Cool. So let's return that here. And now on the boards page, we want to make it so that you can create a board. So when that board gets created, it needs to be assigned the right project ID. So we also need to make sure that we're doing that correctly. Okay, so let's just dive straight into that. And I'm probably going to use basically the same concept as we used with the project. So we can say here, Q page sticky. And we'll give an offset equal to 14 and 14. That sounds about right. A button, this will be a floating action button with a color equal to primary. And then an icon equal to MDI plus, I think we'll do for that. Save it. There's our button. That's going to create a new board. And let's create a new file here called board form.vue and a new file which is create board dialog.vue template here, and this will be our board form. So we'll get that imported, and then here we can do a VueModel. We'll say const p is equal to use boards page. And now here we can model p dot board model creator dot form template. And then here we will have a queue form. This is all the same stuff as before. And then we can say const model value is equal to define model. We can get all the typing of that. Oh, not model. That should be by typing in here form. And then we just have to pass in the model for that, which is a board model. So now that's going to be fully typed. And we can say required is equal to true, because that's always going to be required. Next thing I'm going to do, the first parameter for that should be model value. My bad. Now we can say Q, how about we do a color first? And that will have a VueModel equal to model value dot color. That's right. We're sure that we set that. And then we'll have a Q input. And then I might just do a simple margin bottom here. Q margin bottom medium to separate the color, restart ESLint server, from this input. And this input is going to have a VueModel of model value dot, and then the title. Yeah, maybe we go title first actually, and we just put a margin top there. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's the form, and we need a dialog here. So Q dash dialog. Inside of that we'll have a Q card, and inside of that card we'll have a Q card section, and then underneath here we'll have a button, and that button's going to have a form, and that form is going to be create board form. So now we give this an ID equal to create board form. So this is what I was talking about before, where now the button will match that form. And then we can give this a label equal to create. Just do a few things here like full width. Whoops, class is equal to full width. And we'll give it a color equal to primary. Save it. We get it all formatted nicely for us. And next, when this is submitted, we want to stop because we don't want to submit it to the page. The page doesn't refresh. And then we'll say here P, so give me the page dot what did I call it? Board model dot creator, and we just call create on that. Okay, that might be it. That's a lot of code without testing. So let's restart the dev server. Get this page refreshed. Create. And we now need to make sure that that dialog actually shows. So now we can say here on the page, const p equals use boards page. And when you click on this button, we want to show that dialog. So p dot board model. Again, this all just sits on that composable creator, show the form. Is equal to true. And we now need to have this dialog involved. So let's just put it in here. Create board dialog. And that's going to model show form, so that when it hides, that gets set to false automatically for us. Okay, let's see how this works. Doesn't look good. All right, why doesn't that look good? We have a Q card in there. The button is outside of the card. I've done it again. There we go. Now this should be filled and it needs a label as well. Let's go into design mode by moving this around. Okay, so we'll jump into that board form. I think this looks better when it's filled, and we'll give it a label equal to title. The title of the board is going to be, for example, shopping. And then we can come in here and just give it a color, maybe that sort of aqua color. Create. Well, that didn't seem to do anything, did it? So at submit, this needs to have a type equal to submit. Now it works. We want a loading spinner on there. So let's set that equal to p dot board model creator dot creating. We're going to do some updating in a second here because we've got some pretty cool updating stuff we have that we can take advantage of with VueModel. So let's get all the boards showing. We're basically going to do this in the same way, something really simple. And we'll do that by saying, let's let's have a div with a row. Why don't I do this at the page level, actually? It just makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Oh, but often I'll make this a column, so no, that's fine. Let's make this a row. And then we can say div here, and we'll iterate over all of our boards. v-4 board in p dot. We grab our board model, and again, this comes out of the updater. And one of the reasons this comes out of the updater is we're now going to be able to access that form and basically very easily update this piece of data live. So updater.forms. Now we'll set the key equal to, how about we pluck out of there the ID and the form. And the key is equal to the ID. And let's just see if that's working by showing the form here. Yep, there we go. There's our form. And now we have a cue card. And we put a cue card section in there to create a little bit of space. And then we can say here, I'm actually going to make this an input. And if we make it borderless, then it just sort of looks like text that you can edit. So it's got that sort of Trello vibe to it. You'll see what I mean in a second. So now for the VueModel, we say form dot, and this is where you can change the title. Yeah, see that how it, you can edit it, but it's an input that doesn't really yell, I'm an input. So if I got rid of borderless there, you get that little underline, or you've also got filled, or you've also got outlined, you know, you've got those kinds of styles. But if you say borderless, then it gives you sort of more of a Trello vibe. I might even get rid of the card section here, since that already comes with some padding. Yeah, and then we might just wrap this in a div instead. I'm just trying to find a style I like. Class is equal to Q, padding on the x-axis of medium. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then you can come in here and change this board. So you could say like shopping updated, but if I refresh the page, that's not going to persist. So what you can actually do, if we jump into our boards page composable, is there's some options here. So if we jump into update, for our update options, we can say auto update true and auto update debounce and set it to something like 250. There we go. Let's come back here and say shopping updated. Refresh the page. Huh. Maybe I didn't wait long enough. Might have been a little bit heavy. Yeah, I was a bit heavy on the update button, I think. But I want this to be high so I can demo something. Actually, let's do this. If we jump into our VueModel boot file, so I found this inside of our boot files VueModel, you'll notice that there's a mock latency. And it's actually using local storage to set that mock latency. So I'm going to change this to using the local storage version, and I'll set this to a higher number. I'll show you what I mean. So we come in here now and we say application storage, we jump into local storage. We can put in that mock latency and set it to something like 800 milliseconds. Now if I refresh the page, notice that it takes a few milliseconds for that to show up. I'll make it more obvious. Let's set it to 5,000 milliseconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so that takes a lot longer to show up. This is really cool for working on spinners. So we're going to set this equal to 350. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how easy it is to basically hook all this stuff up. So you've got form, but we can also pluck out of here whether or not it is updating. So now we can just come in here and say loading is equal to updating. Open that back up again. We might actually jump back into sort of coding mode. What do you call it? Designing mode. Updated. And we'll say again. And now we get that loading spinner to show that it's updating. Did that just go for 5 seconds? I thought I changed that. Did I change it? No. Yeah, maybe I had to refresh the page. So let's go updated. Yeah. And now you can see that it's happening live. But another thing we can do is actually show whether or not it's changed. So we can say changed. And maybe have like a little dot. So this is something that I do sometimes to show. This is really helpful with apps where you want to have live update features, but it's really important that the user knows that that data has persisted. So especially when you're dealing with apps that have a lot of number entry, and you don't want the user to have to keep pressing update as they go because they're entering like lots and lots of data, but you want to show them, hey, we've received that value and I want you to know that it has actually updated successfully. So since that was such a common pattern for me, I wanted a way to do that really easily in VueModel. And I believe I've got one if I remember correctly. And let's just put a circle inside of here. There we go. See, we get that circle icon. And we'll set the color equal to orange. And this is going to indicate that that field has changed and it is basically not up to date. So then we say if changed, then I want you to show that icon. So let's change it from shopping. It goes orange, and then notice that when it's done, the orange disappears. Shopping updated. Really, really, really helpful. So yeah, that's cool. Another thing we've got here though, I think there's one that's called like recently changed. Maybe I didn't, yeah, okay, I think I implemented that, but it doesn't exist yet. Maybe on the fields, let me just check this because I'm sort of interested. We say fields dot title dot. Yeah, no, we don't have a recently changed value. I think I made that in a component once. But that can be helpful too. If you want to know that something is recently updated, you might sort of show a little green tick and the user goes, okay, cool, that's all working fine. But then if they see it go red, they know that like something's happened on the server or, whatever. So that's kind of cool. I probably spoke a little too much on that, but I thought, hey, it's kind of cool to share these little details as we go along here. So now we've got boards. We want to be able to click on those boards and go into them. And the problem is this, I've kind of made it so that when you click on this, it's an input form. So it doesn't really work with this paradigm. So I don't know, maybe for now we just create an open button and I'll think more on this. So let's just have a button on there that says like icon MDI open maybe. Book open? I don't know, that could be cool. Oh, like MDI show. Oh, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Shower. Or even like an MDI play. Or MDI board maybe. MDI board? No, MDI play. All right, you guys don't want to see me sitting here trying to find the right icon, so let's just go with that. And we'll make this a row. And we'll say items center there so that it shows correctly. And then let's give this a color equal to secondary, and I'll make it unelevated. It's kind of the unelevated. There we go. Yeah, and then you click on that to get into it. All right, this UI isn't great, but I just really want to push on. So this is going to take us to the next page, and let's give it a param of the board ID. And I just realized we haven't actually scoped these boards to the project. So if I were to choose a different project, it would still show the same one. So we need to have some code that scopes it to the project, and we need to make sure when it gets created with the right project ID. And that's great because it gives me a chance to demo something that I think is pretty cool, which is that this is really, really easy to do. So we come in here, notice that we call create. If you kind of want to say, hey, by the way, there's one more thing that I want to add in while this is being created, then you can do that here by just passing in any other stuff that you want to add in. So then you can say, hey, by the way, merge in the project ID. So now we can just say const route is equal to use route, and I should be able to just go route.params.project ID. Let me double check that's what it's called. Yeah. We have a project ID on there. And yeah, it does like typing can kind of get weird with this kind of thing when you're sort of dealing with routes. Maybe we just default that to an empty string. No, that's fine. I'm not even going to worry about this right now. And let's just check if it works. So first we need a way to delete this. That's probably going to make it a little bit easier to sort of work moving forward. I'm just going to do like a dodgy delete button. But check out how simple this is. We can just say MDI delete. Really, really cool for prototyping. And when you click on this button, then I just want to delete it. How about we make this dense? Instead of unelevated, we make it flat. We'll cut that out for now. And we'll give it a color equal to negative to show that it's, oh, maybe I like kind of a lighter reddy color. Yeah, and then we'll just say class margin on the left of small, maybe medium. Yeah, and then maybe round. And then all we have to do is say, hey, when you click on this, then, hey, board model, I want to destroy something. So we use the destroyer dot destroy, and we want a spinner as well. So loading is equal to p board model dot destroyer dot destroy in. And that's it, that's done. Now that's going to give you the ID of the thing that's being destroyed, so you get a little bit of extra information. So I like to just coerce that to a Boolean. Delete. Did that work? Doesn't look like it. Oh, it wants the ID. It's like, what am I destroying? This is what you're destroying. There we go. And now that's destroyed, and we can test creating something and giving it a project ID as we create it. Okay, so I already wrote that code, didn't I? Yeah, project ID is now being set. So let's just test if this works. And some board, and the project ID is up there inside of the URL. And we'll give it a color, create that. And now inside of application, if we jump into IndexedDB, this is the other thing. It's so easy to inspect your data when you're prototyping like this. Projects, and there it is. And, oh wait, not projects. We're looking at boards, aren't we? Boards. There's our board, and it's got a project ID now. There's one last problem, which is that it's probably not getting scoped to that project ID. So if I go into projects, we select the first one, it shows up. We select the second one, it shows up. So let's come in here and make sure that gets scoped correctly. And there's actually some cool stuff you can do with global scopes to do this automatically, but especially when you're prototyping, you might not be worth doing that unless you kind of know what you're doing and it's easy for you to accomplish. Okay, so our updater here, so the thing that creates all of the forms to display all the stuff on the page, again, this can be a little bit confusing at first, but the updater is in charge of getting the data from the back end because it then creates forms for you. You don't have to do it this way. There are other ways of doing it, but this is how I usually do it so that I can create forms as I go. Especially for prototyping, this makes things so easy because if you ever want to change data, you change the form. And then because you're using VueModel, well, if you're using Laravel Orion as well, you can then easily swap it out later. All right, too many words. So for the updater, we can now say, can I do it directly on the updater? Yeah, okay, I think we have to go right through the indexer now. We now say indexer. So this is the thing that's in charge of getting that data, and we can add some filters in here. So I'm going to add a filter, which can be a function, and then we're going to return there, and notice that we get everything fully typed, and we're going to filter by the project ID. Now, what do we want to know about the project ID? We want to know if it equals, and then we pass in here a value. So now I can easily just do something like this. Const route is equal to use route. We just pull that route out. We say route.params.project ID. Save it, and that's going to complain because of the whole typing of this, where it thinks it could be a string or a string array. You know what? I could just do this. That'll make it happy. Yeah, there we go. But let's try this now. Because we're using Pina, yeah, if you refresh on that page, it works. But Pina is global, so we need to tell it to basically fetch again every time that route changes. Can you watch a route? Pretty sure you can watch a route because it's just a reactive. So route dot params. Yeah, we could just do this, surely. New project ID. I don't even need a new project ID. We just basically call, we tell this to make the forms again. Yeah. So then I think I would just go, hey, updater, can you just would I just call index? No, if you call index straight away, it needs to be awaited. All right, let me think out loud here. I'm wondering if when I run index, it's going to automatically essentially delete the old forms and replace them with the new ones. So let's just refresh the page on here. That delay is annoying me a little bit. So I'm going to come into storage. No, local storage. And just change that to like maybe 150. So that one works. Yeah, cool. All right, we just need to call index again, and that works. Refresh the page, still looks good. But it doesn't seem to be picking up the changes when I go to that one and back. Oh no, that's working fine. Yep, cool. I'm happy with that. So now when we click on here, that needs to take us to a new route, and that's going to be our boards page, and that's probably where I'm going to finish up this stream. It hasn't been the smoothest stream ever, but we've gotten reasonably far, and I've really got to change that play button to something else. Yeah, it's probably better to just have an edit button and then a form that shows up when you click on edit, and then if you click on anything else, it takes you to the project. Okay. I'm going to ignore that for now, and we need to set up this route. That's what we're up to now. So we'll, jump into our routes file. And inside of here, we've got boards, but this is going to take us to the actual board itself. So do we need the project ID at this point? Probably not, because the board has it. So we could just say /board and then the board ID. Yeah, and then if we need the project ID, we get it off the board. Okay, so we'll send the props down as well, and we'll make that board singular. And we'll call that board singular page. Board singular. And now we'll come in here and create a new folder called board, and then a new file called board page. There we go, Q page. We'll add some padding in there. And I'll just put a comment in there to sort of show that we're ready to go. Restart ESLint. It seems to not like it when I create new files, because I know that when I save it, that comment should be pushed out. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the name of that is board, and it expects a board ID. Now we go to the, get myself lost now. When you click on the play button, that's right. I want you to take me to the board route with a param, where the board ID is equal to the ID of the current board that we're on, params. Syntax, Luke. Okay, that looks good. We got our board page. Let's just type in here board page so we know we're at the right spot. Let's try a refresh there. Yeah. The server crashes really easily now since it's moved to V5. I don't know what that's all about. And there we go. We're on our board page now. Now we need to get the board, and with that board, we need to get all of the cards as well. No, not just cards. We've got columns. So now we need to introduce the concept of columns and the concept of cards. And then I might actually take a little break at this point because we've been going for almost an hour and a half, and these headphones are killing my ears. Column, card. Now, let's jump into column. That's the one that we'll be working with first. And a column has got a title, so you can change the title of the column. And it's also got many cards. So now we get to do a has many relationship that comes out of Pina ORM decorators, I believe. Yep. Has many card. And we created that earlier. And the way it's going to find that is via the column ID, because every card will then belong to a column. Card, card. Save it, jump into the card, and a card's going to have a body, and it's going to belong to a column. And the way it belongs to that column is via its column ID. Thank you, little snorkel dude. Don't need you anymore. Just knock my mouse. So let's paste this one down. And it belongs to a column via the column ID. Good rhyming, Luke. Well done. There we go. All right, that's pretty much it. Column has many cards via the column ID on the card table. Card ooh, I nearly got that wrong. That's going to be an array, and it won't be null because that'll just be an empty array if it's there's nothing in it. Cool. And then the card's got a title, and sorry, the column has a title, and the card has got a body and a title. Yeah, let's go with that. So we'll keep it simple to begin with, where you just kind of like type in some text for the title of the card, but then you'll be able to click on it to put in some more information about that card. All right, let's kind of get everything stringed together, and then I'm going to take a break because, yeah, my ears are killing me. I need some new headphones. I don't mind the sound on these ones, and I like that I can move my head around because it's kind of a headset that's got a mic attached, and the mic is relatively good, I think. I think it's pretty good, considering it's something that you wear on your head. But yeah, it kills my ears. Okay, so we have the board page, and we need to be able to add columns. Now, what's the best way to do this? I think maybe we actually do it with a button. Let's just start with a button in the page that isn't a floating action button. And we'll give an icon equal to MDI plus, and I'll leave most of its default styling. Color is equal to primary. There we go. So yeah, I kind of like that. Just plus, that's how I add a column. Simple as that. Now, what are the columns going to look like? Now, we're going to have to do some cheeky stuff with Quasar's page component to get a really nice design here. We might do that later. Yeah, we're going to save that for later. Let's move on to the page stuff. So we'll create a new file here called useboardpage.ts. Export const useboardpage is equal to define store. It's going to be called use dashboard. No, we'll just call it board dash page. Okay. Return an empty object there. So now we need to have access to the board. So we'll say const board model is equal to use model coming out of VueModel, and then the board. And we might get that with the cards. So now what we can do is say, hey, I want to add some stuff to the indexer. Specifically, we want to get it with other data as well. What other data do we want? Oh, we want the columns, but we haven't set that relationship up yet, which is why it wasn't showing up. Yeah, so board has many columns, and a column belongs to a board. Okay, let's do that. Has many. Import that. Column ID, columns. Okay, and then a column belongs to a board. And therefore it needs to have a board ID. Board ID belongs to a, via the board ID, board. Get that imported. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah, okay, that all looks good to me. And now, when we get those boards, we can get them with all of their columns. And while we're at it, we can probably also get all of our cards. So we get really nice typing here. And then if you want, you can also add filtering and stuff like that in your with statements. But since I'm doing none in this case, I might even be able to just display it like this. Yeah, I don't mind that. Cool. So now we'll just return that here. Board model. And now let's jump over to the board page. And we'll say const p is equal to use board page. All right, we're really close to finishing up here. And now when you add a new card, let's just create a demo card here. And what I want to do here is give this a style function. What do I get here? We get the offset and the height. So I need to remember how to do this. We want the offset. Oh, they're as parameters, aren't they? Yeah. Offset, height. And now here we're going to return an object. So this is for the style of the page. And I want to give it a height equal to, and then we can say calc the height of the page in pixels. All right, so you can do this, I think. Height of the page in pixels minus the offset of the page in pixels. So this is a kind of a neat trick because it means that the page can't get any, it means that you can kind of get more control over the scrolling. So the height of this page is always going to be exactly the height of this area here. So that we've minus this offset section here, and the height is going to be always exactly that high. And I believe that means I can do stuff like this. We have a card. So let's go Q dash card. We'll put a div in there because the card section's got too much padding. Class of Q padding or extra small. We'll just go dot dot dot. Yeah, so this is going to be our column. Now, if we make this a row, we make the page a row, and then we give this like a maximum width, or not even a maximum width, because usually these apps have like a set width, maybe 400 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. That's a bit wide, isn't it? So let's try like 280. We'll go into designer mode again. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, I reckon even less than that, like 220. Whoa, 220. Yeah. And make sure I put it in the right spot as well. So the style would go on there. Whoops. And now we can say Q col gutter of like medium to sort of separate everything. And I'm going to put everything basically inside of its own div. Just prevents problems in this future because it kind of otherwise, all of this column gutter stuff can kind of mess with the child component. So I like to just wrap it all in a div. So class is equal to, I don't actually want to give it a column class. Just want them to separate correctly. Yeah, there we go. So now they're all separating nicely from each other. And then if you had another card, it would be like that. Okay, that ain't right, is it? This should be a row. And that's because there was no space left. So I think there's a way you can do like, you can do like an overflow. Can you do overflow auto when you're working with flex? I think so. Those of you that know me know that CSS is not my strongest point. Yeah, there's like a no overflow or something like that that we have on our layout components. What do you call it when it goes to the next line? Oh my gosh, I can't remember this. Anybody watching, let me know if you can think of this, where it kind of automatically goes to the next line. Just the word no. It's like no. Oh man, it's driving me nuts. No break or something like that. No wrap. It's wrap. That's what it is. Oh my gosh. Ugh. It might even just be literally no dash wrap. Yes. Do not wrap, even if necessary. No dash wrap with an overflow auto. Oh, it's the wrong. Whereas that seems to be wrapping. We then have the cut. Oh, okay, but then the way I've kind of done this is wrong because they're within the div. That should be another div to represent another column. There we go. And now we should be able to add another one and it won't wrap. Yeah, cool. We get the scroll bars. Yes, all right, that's what I'm looking for. Woo! Next, we want to stretch these to the full height. So class is equal to, I'm just going to be naive to begin with and say full height here. Or I think the way I usually do it, no, yeah. You can do it like this. You can make that a column. So let's get rid of the no wrap for now. We'll reintroduce that in a second. The overflow auto. And we're going to change the goal to making it so that this basically takes up the full height of that column. So now we can do that by giving that a col to basically say, take up the rest of the space. Let's try without full height. Why is it not working? I would have thought that would work because this gives it the right height. This tells it it's a column. And now by saying col, we're saying, hey, take up the full height. But the card might not be. So let's go full height on the card. All right, let's have a look. What's going on here? Man, not gonna lie, I always have problems with this stuff. All right, so that's... It looks like that style tag is just not working. Maybe it's because I didn't write pixels there. Hey! Oh my gosh. Maybe I'm not as bad at CSS as I thought. Okay, so that's now taking up, we want it to take up the full height. So we can just go col 12 there, and that's going to work. We probably want to do like a items start. Items start to get that plus button at the start. I don't know. Okay, that doesn't matter right now. Let's just focus on the next thing. So next I want to make it, well, let's just check if another card shows up correctly. So if we add another one in here, yeah, that shows up next to it. That shows up next to it. And and we get all the right scrolling as well. Except we get a little bit of up and down scrolling here. I don't know what that's about, but I'm sure that's something that's not too hard to fix. It's probably got something to do with me using full height there. If we get rid of full height for all of those. No, it's sticking around. All right, that's something I can fix later. Okay, we got the basics of it though. So now let's actually do this properly. It's kind of the more annoying design stuff done. Next, we want to make it so that at the top of each of these columns, you can change the title. Now that should be really easy to do. So we've got all of our boards here, and we want to be able to change the title of the board. Okay. V-4, we grab our page. We grab our page. Oh no. We grab our page, board model. And now for the updater, we say updater. And we want to grab all of those forms. Now, what do we want out of those forms? Well, we want the ID so that we can index it correctly. And then we want the form itself so that we can easily change the title. Now, let's come in here and say key is equal to ID. Nice. And now inside of the div at the very top, we can have a Q input. We're going to make it dense. We're going to make it borderless. And we can say here VueModel is equal to the current form that we're on. And specifically, we want to model the title. And there it is, some board. Huzzah! Now, we want to make it so that title updates. So we change that, refresh the page. It doesn't update. So if we jump into our board page, let's change the settings of the updater, update, and we set auto update equal to true. And we want a pretty gentle debouncer on this. So I'm going to say 200 because you want things to feel pretty live and you want to be able to, like, you know, these kinds of apps are the apps where people are constantly changing things and you want to make sure that that app is constantly, or that data is constantly up to date. Especially if you're not using, like, you know, local storage to create a queue and then sync things later on. I'm sure Trello is probably doing that behind the scenes. They're doing like some advanced syncing stuff, which I'm not going to be building. I have thought about that though. It'd be really cool to be able to add stuff like that into VueModel. And I have built apps that kind of extend on this concept where you've got like prefer storage. And you know, you've got queues where your data can later on be stored, but then if it has clashes, it tries to deal with those clashes. But you know, there's tooling that exists for that. We're not going to focus on that right now. Some board changed, refresh the page, and that still works. And let's just make it so we can add the cards. And then the next thing we're going to do, so I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to start focusing on drag and drop, which is actually surprisingly not that hard. Okay, so adding cards. Let's add just a little plus button at the top right here for adding a new card. And I usually don't do a lot of comments, but sometimes I think it makes a lot of sense in templates. Hang on. I'm doing the wrong thing here, aren't I? I'm doing boards. Oh my God. These should be columns, not boards. This is a page for a board. And that should be all of the columns. But, oh my God, we're modeling all of the boards. Luke, you silly boy. Okay. Okay, it's not obvious to me how I would do this though, because when you're using an updater, you're trying to talk out loud here. So this is, when you're using an updater, it doesn't support nested data. So in this case, we're getting the boards with all of the columns, but the columns are going to have to be fetched separately. So we'll need an updater for the columns. All right, so here's what I'll do. Let's come in here and we'll say const columns model, use model, whoop, column. And we'll steal all of that stuff and put it in here. This was actually supposed to belong to the column. Column, singular, model. And now we want to be able to get all of our boards with our columns so that we can, no, that's not true. We then just want to be able to display all of the columns across the top. Yeah, I'm not even sure any of this is necessary. I'm not sure we even need to get the board. We might need it to sort of show a title up the top of the page. Okay, so let's just get rid of that and see if we can just swap this out. P dot column model. And it's also got a title, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. So now nothing shows up, but when we click on the plus button, we can now create a new column. So when you click on that, we say p dot column model dot creator dot create. Now when we create a new column, we need to give it a board ID, and that should be easy by using the route. By the way, another way that you can do this, I'm pretty sure you can say create, and there's like a merge. Yeah, here we go. You can say merge here, which means every time you create this, merge in these fields. You know what? I don't really like it here because we could merge in the data. So you could do something like this and then say, hey, always merging the current board ID. But the reason I don't like this is it's not very explicit. So I think I'd rather just do it on the spot. I don't know. Oh, my mind could be changed on that. It doesn't matter. Let's just do it because it's cool. But I'm not sure. It also means that you can't get it wrong, because if you do it here and you forget to do it later on, then at least it gets done. So yeah, I changed my mind. I think it is a good idea to do it here. Route is equal to use route, and whenever you create a column, it needs a board ID. So now we say here, whoops, there it is, board ID is equal to route.params. Board ID, doesn't like the typing there, so we just wrap that mofo in a string. Cool. And when we create a column, it should automatically get that board ID. And that means that now when I create it, when you click on this button and we call create, we don't have to pass the board ID through. We literally just call create and it automatically gets merged into the form. So I'm going to refresh the page, click on create, and there we go. My board. Refresh the page, that worked. And we can now start adding boards. The design is not perfect, but you know, it works. It's pretty good. You can see that the order is, you know, sort of changing. So another thing we'd want to do is know when it was created. So if I jump into one of our models here, do we have created at fields? Yeah, we have created at and updated at. I think we can actually order it by those fields. But we're not going to do that right now because we want to be able to order things by how they've been dragged. So we want to be able to drag and drop these at some point, put them into different positions. And because we're going to add that feature, I'm not going to do the ordering by created at and updated at right now. And by the way, just to show you how that works, if we jump into that VueModel boot file, which is basically like how you install VueModel, app, you can think of this as your Vue app because that's what it is. We come down here. It looks like it is actually trying to order it by created at. Huh. When you use latest. But is that applied as a global scope? No, it's not a globally applied scope. So the thing we can do here is you can just add that scope in that we have. Where is it? Yeah. Let's just come in here and say index. Scopes? Yeah, there we go. Latest. Let's see if that works. I don't know if that worked or not. Well, yeah, I think it did, but that's kind of the opposite of what we wanted because then the latest one goes to the front, but when you add one, it goes to the end. Yeah, it goes to the end, but then if I refresh the page, that's the latest, so it goes back to the front. But anyway, it kind of shows you that that works. So we've got that scope that you get for free when you install VueModel. And then if I come back here, you can see we have a whole bunch of hooks. So when you're creating something, we create a new date. And if that thing that you're creating has got a created at, well, yeah, whenever you're creating it, you set created at equal to whatever the current time is. And what's this other hook as well? Oh yeah, and this is for the authenticated user. So if we have an authenticated user, then we set the owner ID here. That's how that one works. Same with updating as well. When you update it, you change the updated at field. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, I think we might, let's just quickly do cards. Then I can just focus on ordering when I do the next live stream. All right, so now underneath here, we need to have cards. Where does it say columns? Yeah, columns here. And then that's the title of the column. It's kind of where we've done the blah, blah, blah. And then underneath there is where we would show the card. So let's make this a column. We'll give it an overflow auto as well. Okay, and now we'll put a